A woman stepping into this role is a sign of how far the Church of England has come.
I intend to be a shepherd who enables everyone's ministry and vocation to flourish, whatever the tradition. And how many people will you have through on average?
But Dame Sarah Mullally, the first female Archbishop of Canterbury, knows what comes next will not be easy. She'll have to address dwindling attendance, divisions over same-sex marriage and safeguarding scandals.
I recognise that the trauma that abuse has caused and also the failure of the Church in how it has dealt with it. We do need to rebuild our trust, and that will take time, but I am committed to doing that. How long have you been a curate?
Dame Sarah, the Bishop of London, worked as a cancer nurse and, aged 37, was England's youngest ever chief nursing officer. This is the first time women have been eligible for the Church's most senior clerical position.
I wish her well, and I hope she will do better than the last Archbishop.
It's making history, isn't it? I mean, it's a big step forward for women.
But this is a global role, leading 85 million Anglicans worldwide. In Nigeria, where the congregation is more conservative, they will need persuading.
Having a woman, not just a bishop, but as the leader of the communion that presides over the communion all across the world is worrisome, and is going to come with a lot of negative attachments.
But when Dame Sarah starts next year, it will be a defining moment for an institution often accused of being too slow to adapt. Amy Lewis, ITV News.
First of all, congratulations, you're a history maker. But you're taking over a church absolutely on its knees, not necessarily in prayer, with the abuse scandal, civil war over same-sex marriage, a battle between liberals and evangelicals, falling congregations. Is this a church that has been handed to a woman at its lowest point, and how do you deal with it?
Well, one of my encouragements is that I am out and about in churches and cathedrals every day of the week, and I see lots of really good stories of hope. They're involved in food banks, they're involved in schools, and actually we have begun to see over the last 2 years rising congregations, and we have seen an improvement in safeguarding in terms of professionalism, but also wonderful parish safeguarding officers. So I'm a person of hope, and I do think in terms of what I can contribute is an encouragement of what the signs of hope that we are seeing.
There may have been a small uptick in congregations, but really falling over a decade. Let's just go through some of those, not least the fact you're the first woman in this role. But even choosing a woman is a divisive moment for a divided church. Do you accept that a female Archbishop of Canterbury means the worldwide Anglican communion is effectively over, because there are vast swathes of the church that won't accept you as Archbishop of Canterbury?
Well, I think what's wonderful is that we have a very diverse church. The average Anglican is in fact a black woman in their 40s in poverty in sub-Saharan Africa. So there is a sense in which that there's a real connection, I think, of having a woman as an Archbishop of Canterbury. But also, I've been the Bishop of London in probably the diocese that is probably the most theologically diverse within the Anglican Church.
And some of them outright reject you, don't they, as a woman bishop?
Well, I think my experience over the last 7 years is that the way in which I've gone in, and my line is always, I want to see their ministry flourish. And I think we have found an environment in which actually we have found a way of working, and I think there's a lot of support for me, and actually I've been really encouraged by that.
I'm sure there is support for you, and there's been a warm response, certainly from many quarters, to your to you being chosen as the next Archbishop. But there's a body of Anglicans in the church, conservative Anglicans known as GAFCON. They've had a moratorium on women bishops since 2018. Nigeria has 17 million Anglicans. They don't recognise women bishops. It's over for the communion, isn't it, with you as Archbishop of Canterbury?
The majority of the provinces in the Anglican communion, in fact, do ordain women. And what I'm looking forward to do is to work with the primates and the bishops of the Anglican communion and, in a sense, take my experience in London, where we have found a way to share ministry, into the Anglican communion across the globe.
will it matter to you if the communion splits and falls apart on this?
I'm offering the skills that I have at a very specific time. I'm fundamentally a collaborator. I have a fundamental faith in Jesus Christ. And I think the thing I've learnt is that to offer those skills in that way. And what we have to remember is that we are united as a church.
So you think you can hold it together?
We are united as a Christ by what Jesus Christ has done. And therefore you have to live into that environment. And therefore I will seek to work with bishops and priests and congregations across the Anglican Communion to, in a sense, develop that environment in which I believe we can flourish.
You're very clear in your opening remarks to stand alongside the Jewish community after the appalling attack on the synagogue yesterday. The chief rabbi has said that faith leaders must contribute to social cohesion within our country. How will you do that, and have you spoken to him yet?
Yes, I work a lot with faith leaders, and I have spoken to the Chief Rabbi this morning, one, to offer my condolences to all those affected in that horrific attack in Manchester, but also to say that together, standing alongside him in solidarity, we do have to continue to build on good community cohesion, which we have got experience of doing, but we clearly need to do more.
How soon will you go to Manchester?
What is wonderful about the Church of England is that there is a Bishop of Manchester, and Bishop David is there on the ground with the faith leaders, and I don't take up my role till next year. So, I trust Bishop David. He knows the leaders there, and he knows the community there.
You promised in your opening remarks a cultural shift on safeguarding. One survivors advocate has told us this morning that he has been contacted by a number of abuse survivors who've said they are shocked, disappointed and surprised at your appointment. One said you've prioritised reputation management over transparency. What do you say to them?
In my comments, I made the comment that I welcome light being shone on us as leaders around our safeguarding reputation. In London over the last 8 years, we have seen a real shift change in London around safeguarding. We've seen investment. We're listening to survivors who shape the way in which we respond, and also the way in which we prevent abuse.
Forgive me, that was quite a direct reaction to you being appointed as Archbishop of Canterbury. The reason you've come into this role is because the last one stood down over that heinous situation with John Smythe. They have said very specifically that you prioritise reputation management over transparency. Has the Church taken the risk of somebody with you that cannot be trusted by victims? What would you say to them?
So I think if you look over the last 8 years when I've been in the Diocese of London, we have had a real shift change, both in terms of our safeguarding professions, but also the culture. We're listening to survivors, we've increased our investment, we have been transparent, and we have also learnt when things needed to be improved. And
have you got things wrong personally?
So in a sense, what we're saying is you have to create an environment in which we have a reflective, we reflect on what we're doing and how we can improve it. It is any organisation will be a learning organisation, yes, and seek to improve what we're doing.
Forgive me, but survivors of abuse from the Church of England have been listening to that for years. You have promised a cultural shift. A cultural shift will mean fully independent safeguarding. Yeah. That is what has been appealed for time and again, and yet now it sounds as though you're just thinking about how do we talk about culture. Just say, as the new Archbishop of Canterbury designate, even though Synod has voted against that fully independent safeguarding, it is time to clear the debt and make sure that that's what the survivors get.
So I have been really clear to date, and I'm on record saying that my belief is that we need independence of scrutiny, we need independence of operation.
But the Church has voted against it.
My view is that that is the only way forward. Synod voted back in earlier on in the year, and we're working towards independent scrutiny, and actually to continue to look at how we ensure the right scrutiny is there. And I have been on the record so ensuring that's my commitment. But also the other cultural shift is that actually we are getting survivors to help us improve in these systems. And that also is another shift change.
Do you think that's got to be enough if there's somebody, a victim of abuse, hearing that today, that will be enough for them after all these years?
Well, I recognise that the trauma that abuse has caused, and also the failure of the church in how it has dealt with it. And I realise that not only is there something about continuing to improve what we're doing around safeguarding, but actually we do need to rebuild our trust, and that will take time. But I am committed to doing that.
Two more quick questions. I just want to ask you about the Unite the Kingdom rally, where Christian symbols were paraded. Would you condemn such co-opting of the cross for its cause?
Using any symbol in a sense, using it in a form of intimidation is wrong. At the fundamental heart of the Christian faith, we are there to love our neighbours, to care for the oppressed, to care for the marginalised. And of course, one of the wonderful symbols that we have is of Christ washing feet. So we need to stand up and speak out against whether it is racism or whether there are ways in which hostility and aggression is put to people, and say actually we know of another narrative, and very much our churches are engaged in community, living out that narrative.
But what did you think when you saw the cross paraded on that rally?
I think we have to speak out when we think there are symbols that are being used in an aggressive way.
And you think it was in that situation?
I think that is right. And what we need to do is to work with our communities and to show where actually there is cohesion. But at the same time, we ought to, as churches do, listen to those in our communities that are concerned about concerned about a whole set of issues, and to say, how do we show another way, which I know is there, because churches at the heart of the community provide cohesion and right across different faiths, different people. And that is what the church does well.
Just one sort of final thought, really. You'll be coming into this post as Archbishop of Canterbury. It is an enormous moment of history for the church and for women in this country. You're coming into it at the age of 63. It means that you'll only be in post for 7 years. There will be some people who will want to know whether that's just too short a period or whether you might be seen as an interim Archbishop of Canterbury. What would you say to that?
Well, I think recognising the ministry that I will have will give me focus. I will do the job that is there to be done, which is about being the chief shepherd, the spiritual leader, and offering my skills in that time. And the other bit about that is it also gives a model around how you do this in a way that is sustainable for other future archbishops. It is about saying, this is my time. I'll absolutely do what I'm called to do, the chief pastor, spiritual leader, and give a model around saying, actually, this may be a model for other archbishops in the future.
Will a woman make or break this church, given the tensions within the Anglican Communion?
So I think for me, I have a real sense of call. I believe that God has called me with my experience, my breadth of experience from being a nurse to being a bishop, being a priest, for this moment at this time. The church has discerned, and my trust is in him.
Bishop Sarah, thank you very much indeed. Thank you.